Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk, Live. Welcome back to the studio. Again, my name is Jay. I'm the host of the show. I am excited to introduce, coming in live in the same studio tonight, we have Rachel Fiori, special guest joining us from San Diego, but she is here in our LA studio, joining me with Josh Richard coming in live, hot off the set, doing what he does. Wait a minute, where are those arms coming from? How is it possible? We're in separate screens, but yet I'm being touched by an angel or two. And of course, we have Mr. Evans Love, he's the man of the land from down under. He calls Australia home this evening. Jeff Fasano is off set. He is in New York doing some kind of photo shoot. We miss you, Jeff, but we'll do our best to have some fun here regardless. Tonight's episode is 115. And tonight's topic is all about, is your life a balancing act, or is it time to act in balance? And before I invite Rachel to light us up and get us hot in the studio here, I want to take a moment to welcome all of our viewers back, no matter whether you're coming in from the U.S. or overseas. Let us know what city, state, or country you call home. If you should hear something that you like or love, we invite you to tap your love button and light us up in the studio, get us hot and get us going. If you should have any questions or comments for any of us, please drop it into your comment section, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions that come forward. But tonight, I want to take a moment here to again welcome Rachel back to Real Men, Real Talk Live, episode 115. This is her third time joining us live, and it was a surreal moment for me. I'm not going to speak for Josh. I'll let him take a moment to share what that was like for him. But when Rachel and I just physically touched for the first time, I looked at her and I said, just to touch you in the flesh is such a beautiful gift. You know, it's when we build these relationships from a distance, and then we finally have the opportunity to meet physically, and we take the time to really just honor that experience. I can't speak for you guys, but for me, it's always incredibly special. And it doesn't get old. It just, each time is new, and each time is just absolutely beautiful. Rachel, what was that like for you to first meet my partner, life partner, Mary, and of course, then have the opportunity to meet and greet Josh? What was that like for you tonight?
It's very strange to explain it. It was very surreal. It was exciting. It was like we've met 1,000 times before. It was just like we've met 1,000 times before, when I was so excited to be able to hug Jay and hug Josh. And I was so excited to meet Mary. And it was very surreal. So it was exciting, but it was also like, oh, it's you again. Like old soul family members just reuniting finally in this lifetime. It was beautiful.
So true.
And Josh, tell me, what was it like? What was it like for you?
Rachel, you said it. It was like we've all met. It was just the same way that Jay, when the first time you and I met finally a year ago, and it was just that comfort of home. I feel like we've all just known each other forever, and sharing this beautiful safe space with each other before, and creating this space. Ev, I mean, you create this with us as well, and Ev, I have no doubt too, man, when I get to give you a big hug for the first time, it's going to be awesome. Can't wait. But it's beautiful. Thank you, Rachel, for making the trip.
Thank you for
and
having
Jay, and Mary. All you guys drove to be here in my place.
And so this is for us. I don't want to call it our second home, but in this moment, it is our home. We're so grateful that we've had an opportunity to spend coming up on 24 hours with Josh, and it's always such a blessing, such a great time to connect and catch up on things that we don't do when we're in a production meeting or post meeting or the show. It's just so beautiful. But in any event, Welcome back, Ev and Josh and Rachel, to episode 115, where tonight's topic is all about, is your life a balancing act, or is it time to act in balance? And Rachel, I'm going to invite you to kick off the show tonight and light us up.
Sure. Thank you. So I think a lot of times when we struggle in our lives or in relationships, we don't realize how out of balance we are, meaning me, myself, and I. And I think what we wanted to discuss and talk about and maybe shed a little bit of light on these issues this evening so that you can understand that sometimes when you're really stuck or struggling, you don't understand why a pattern is repeating in your life, is because you yourself are creating out of balance and imbalance in your life or relationship. A simple example to start us off is with giving and receiving. When we are out of balance with giving, for example, we tend to give, and put ourselves last. And then we wonder why we're not appreciated, or people don't give as much as we give. What is happening? I give so much. I'm so selfless. And why don't people give back to me the way that I give to them? And the truth is because you're out of balance with the receiving part. That's why. Because when you give, if you're in balance, it also means you have the ability to receive. When we overgive, we tend to create programs that harbor resentments, victim consciousness. Anger can start to develop. We can think life is very unfair. People don't appreciate me, but we don't realize we are often the ones creating that for ourselves because we're overgivers. And on the receiving side, if you don't know how to give and you're not a great giver, but you're really excellent at receiving, you're going to come across as a selfish, entitled jerk where people don't want to connect with you in deep, loving ways because you're not connectable. You can't connect to somebody who is somebody who always takes. You become a taker when you're out of balance with receiving. So our discussion tonight that I'll invite the other gentlemen to dive into is, can you recognize when you are overgiving, out of balance, over receiving, out of balance in that way? And have you gone through that experience in the past? Do you have examples of when you were one or those you were out of balance with giving, receiving, or anything else?
What do you make of that, Josh, Richard?
Oh. I was the king of giving, not from a pure place, but because I needed love. I needed acceptance. I needed to feel worthy. And when I didn't receive back in the ways that I expected, I kept the scorecard 1,000%. And that scorecard kept me bitter, in a place of bitterness, in a place of anger. I secretly kept this tally sheet with my partners, and in relationships, personal, romantic relationships, as well as with friends and family. And that silent scorecard just takes up so much energy and so much effort to just keep tallying and keep track and all of that. So it's a really unfair, unclean way to give. I was giving out of lack and not because I was giving for the pureness of giving. And here, all these years, I thought I was giving from a pure place, but it just ended up being, it's dirty, it's messy, it's not clean, and it's not pure love.
Yeah, beautiful.
And what sort of work have you had to do, brother? I mean, you've shared, a lot during our show, 15 shows in deep. What was one of those things that really hit the nail on the head for you to really come into that heart space?
For myself, I mean, it had to be generating self-love, because then you don't need it from the outside world. And then when you give, you're giving for the joy of giving to that other person. And you come into that beautiful balance that we're talking about, and you come into that place of fullness and oneness within you. So therefore, how we relate to the others now, friends, family, and our loved ones, that becomes pure because of our balance. But as we've said over and over, and Ev, you're the king of pointing this one out. It all starts here.
How about you, Ev? What was not how you come in today, but what was it like for you in your let's say in your younger years, or even current? What is your relationship with the reciprocity of giving and receiving? And was it always coming from a healthy place, or if not, what was the barrier? What was the block preventing you from that?
Well, I've shared quite vulnerably over the shows, my brothers and sisters, and for those people that don't know, obviously a lot of the giving I was doing to help people was obviously the giving that I was feeling or I didn't feel that I had as the abandoned child. So when I was able to do my own self-awareness work and go on that introspection, I was able to give that self-love that Josh is talking about back to myself, as opposed to feeling I needed to help everyone to get the love of them. And I guess later on, as I started progressing on my journey, obviously a lot of you guys know I love to look after the physical body, and a lot of the mental blocks that I was having and the emotional barriers within my life, I was taking it physically out of my body. So it is really something that I need to still check myself up on if I'm overtraining or overcompensating in other dimensions of my personal being. Because what I feel we should be diving in deep here tonight as well is that when we overcompensate in a certain dimension of our being, we pull from other aspects within our life. So when I was putting so much energy, so much work into this physical body, my mental barriers, my emotional barriers, my relationships, my occupational barriers, they started to obviously deplete in the energy that I should have been able to balance in all those aspects of my life. So this takes a lot of work, brothers and sisters, but I'm sure obviously everyone on the panel tonight is going to be able to give us a little bit more clarity.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ev. I want to just quickly share, basically telling my truth, because that's what we do here in Real Men Real Talk Live. We speak our truths, even when it may not be current, but it's important for me to share from my perspective. Up until I started on my own healing journey back in 2015, I was absolutely a giver, but my intentions, my motive wasn't pure and clean. And it wasn't because I was a bad person. It was because I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I didn't know was that when I was giving, there was always an underlying motive. And an underlying motive is, if I give, maybe you'll see me. If I give, maybe I'll be lovable. Because at the root of all that, I wasn't lovable. I didn't love myself. And so, we talk about one of the 5 love languages, which is words of affirmation, positive affirmations. And every time I gave or did some type of act of service with somebody else, not only did I do it, but I literally went almost as far as renting a billboard in a 405 freeway in LA. I had to announce it to that individual. Look what I just did. Look what I just did for you. Because I needed that. I was so empty of self-love that I needed you to fill me up. But the only way I could get your attention was to do something for you with the motive of, if I do this, you'll acknowledge it, you'll recognize it, and then I'll be okay. I don't know if this is common or uncommon for any of our viewers, but if you can give us a thumbs up or hit us with a like or a love, let me know that, because I know that as much as we think we are unique and different, we're not. We're not. Either we're living in lack, either we're living in our old stories, either we're living in our old traumas and wounds from our childhood, or we've healed them. I don't know if there's anywhere in between. Maybe there is, but I want to move us into our next segment on tonight's show, which is really about what is the difference between active listening versus sharing and talking. And Rachel, I'm going to invite you to kind of kick us off on this subtopic right here, right now.
Sure. When we are out of balance here, it's, active listening. And then there's, of course, sharing. And we think that when we are connected to another person, that here, you and I are here in the same room together. So that means that we're automatically connected. It doesn't mean we're connected in a healthy, loving way. A lot of people connect in very unhealthy, unloving, dysfunctional ways, and even harmful ways. And a simple way we start to get out of balance with this is the person who's out of balance with active listening, they become the dumping ground for other people, because they're quiet, they're listening, they're engaged, and they really are hearing you. And they're trying to hear from a place of understanding you. Except that if there's no balance, that means that person doesn't take the time to share from their own heart, from their soul. If they're not sharing for the other person to have a chance to receive them, that means they're not being seen. They're not getting known. There is no deep, genuine connection. Connection goes two ways. It's not just one way. So that active listener is somebody who can listen with an open heart, but then also take a turn to share. And that person who is sharing and out of balance with talking and sharing is the person who becomes the energetic dumper onto everybody else. Oh, I don't care about you. I'm just here to talk about me. I just want everybody to hear about me and everything that goes on about me in my life, and blah, 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 blah. And you're not pausing that, which means you're not in presence at all for other people. So that eventually is, nobody wants to be around you. Who wants to just show up and be dumped on energetically for hours at a time? So when we're out of balance in these ways, we have to be present enough to say, I've shared for a little while. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to take a time out. It's your turn. So gentlemen, who's next? It's your turn.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this then. If you have that awareness that you are engaged in that conversation or that moment, and it's someone that is important in your life, not just an acquaintance or in a business setting, but this is a friend or a family member, how would you, or if you were coaching me right now,
Yep.
or if I was the one that was not an active listener, I just kept talking, dumping, is there a loving, gentle, kind way that you could suggest to me to shut the F up so that you can actually be engaged in the conversation?
Yeah, there's two things that I'm going to say. And the first is, coming up with a surface level solution is never the true answer, because if I'm out of balance and I'm creating an out of balance scenario, I need to make sure that I'm healing what wounds are in here that are creating these out of balance scenarios to begin with. So the long work, the process work that takes a while, the healing work needs to always be first. Number two, to specifically answer what Jay just brought up for us and asked me, it's you take a time out and say, I love that you're sharing all this with me, but I'm going to time out just for a moment and ask you to breathe and pause for me, because I would love to take a turn to share. And I would love if you took a turn to listen for a little bit. That's the truth. Just come out and ask. You're honest. You're not judging. Don't come from a place of judgment. It's just being honest. Hey, I'm going to call a timeout. I would love to be able to share with you and have you take a turn in listening and hearing and seeing me for a few minutes. Can we do that? Can we try that for a little bit? That's how I would handle that.
And Rachel, obviously, a lot of our viewers are empaths. What you would maybe call an empath. For someone that just holds space for someone, because I've done this in the past plenty of times as well, and that you get snowplowed like you're talking about. What does that particular person do in that conversation?
The empath?
The empath.
Yeah. So let me say this about empaths. I am one. I am so hypersensitive. So let me say that first. Here's the thing with empaths. In order to create balance, you have got to step into your power and learn how to set boundaries. Empaths are the worst people on the planet at setting boundaries. So that is their test of initiation, to love themselves enough and to become empowered enough to say, even though this is difficult for me, I'm going to set boundaries right now because I'm not a dumping ground. If I love myself truly, I don't allow myself to be a dumping ground just because I'm an empath. So the empath has to learn to not just get a little good at setting boundaries, to master setting boundaries, When you master setting boundaries, that is a reflection of self-love, of power. And then you're no longer that dumping ground for other people, because as an empath, people are attracted to you and they want to dump on you. So the only way to prevent that and go out of balance with that is to become really powerful and learn to set those boundaries.
Yeah, I love that answer. And for me, that really comes back to the level of self-esteem for that empath. You know, obviously you speak so confidently, and I think within any communication, what we're talking about here is the expression, but for some message to get across and convey with clarity, it needs to be received actively, like you're saying. But like you said, you know, if we don't have that confidence to be able to set those boundaries, I mean, those initial self-esteem, self-value, and self-worth aspects within our life, they have to be healed.
Yes.
So what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say, if I may paraphrase you, it's really, instead of picking up a resentment towards that other individual, this is an opportunity really to kind of see them as the mirror and ask yourself, why am I finding myself in this one more time with this individual? And really, instead of looking at them and picking up a new resentment or adding on to the old resentment with them, really kind of look within and go, all right, why do I continue to not set a loving boundary for this relationship so that I can dissolve or release the story around the engagement in the relationship of itself, right? Isn't it always come back to us, Josh?
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Jay, was who are we actually mad at?
Oh yeah, that thing.
Who are we actually mad at?
Exactly.
I'm always mad at myself for not setting my loving boundaries and not putting value on myself. And then, or at least, you know, this was me out of balance. But of course it masqueraded as the other person, and I love to blame the other person, but ultimately I was mad at me. It was another time I betrayed myself.
Beautiful.
And that's when you do that for decades on end, that betrayal just really starts to hurt more and more and more. And think of the hundreds or thousands of times we've done that in a lifetime. I certainly did. And not now, not today.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, it takes courage to step in, because part of the fear that we have is when we go to set a loving boundary to have a more equitable exchange in a relationship, the fear is how will it be received? And what if the other person who's the dumper, the other person who doesn't ever even take the time to ask, how are you doing, by the way, after you've just listened extensively for 45 minutes on a phone call or a video chat, and by the time 45 minutes is up, it's like you're exhausted. It's like, I'm wiped out. I got nothing left. I'm spent. But in that moment, I have that moment of clarity of like, wow, that person even asked like how I'm doing. And in that moment, then what do? I mean, by that time, me personally, I'm tapped out and I'm checked out. So, and part of it is that then it's like kind of like that repeat cycle the next time, or then you go into avoidance because you don't want to end up in that same scenario. So how do you be, how can you be true to yourself? And if the relationship is important enough to try to rescue it or save it, you have to have the courage. You have to be willing to at least acknowledge to that individual, just that. But I also want to say that from my experience of, we're talking about active listening versus sharing and talking, there's another component to it, is that when let's say you're in an intimate relationship, you have a partner or a very close friend or even a relative, and you're going through some type of massive experience in your life, whether it be, having hit your rock bottom, having grieved the loss of a loved one, all of the different experiences in life that create that perfect storm for you, and you have your partner that just wants you to feel better, and their natural inclination is to try to rescue you through their words spoken. Tell me more about that, Rachel. Does that work?
Don't do that. No. Boo. Boo.
So how should we show up for a partner when they're going through some type of mourning loss of a loved one, or some type of physical, recovery, or some type of, let's say, dark night of the soul? How do we show up for a loved one?
Yeah. So I'm going to say two big things here. Number one, you have to remember something. They have the power within themselves, and you need to see them as powerful. And powerful does not mean they're not in pain. They're not depressed right now. They're not crying or sad or angry or not themselves, so to speak. That's not what it means to be powerful. To be powerful is, because I feel this way, I'm going to go inside and I'm going to really love and nurture myself. So to support a person stepping into their power and loving and nurturing themselves, it doesn't mean you step back and do nothing. It's, I know you're loving yourself through this right now. What can I do to make you feel loved and supported by me while you step into your power and love yourself? Right there is the question. Not, what can I do to make you feel better? Oh, don't do that. Boo. No, not what can I do to make you feel better? You're seeing them as powerless. They can go in and make themselves feel better, but you can lovingly support them while they do that, because that process is painful. It's ugly sometimes. And while they're trying to do that and heal and elevate and nurture themselves, you just ask them, what can I do to make you feel loved and supported by me while you're healing yourself right now? Magical question.
So Mel Wilson, coming in from Sedona, Arizona, a beautiful next door neighbor who actually is helping us with the plants right now. So thank you for that, Mo. I want to take a moment to thank you and acknowledge you. This is live, so we get to do that. Mo says, aren't there times when someone is going through something heavy and you just want to let them be safe to unload, release emotionally, and be a great listener? And the answer is, from my perspective, absolutely, unequivocally, yes. It's about picking and choosing, knowing when to show up and be that active listener. If someone's going through that dark night of the soul, as I went through, and from the end of 2015 to about almost the end of 2016, I was blessed with an angel that showed up right on time. And she showed up as just that active listener, that even when I asked her, what do you think? She would never, ever, ever dip into that shallow end of the pool. She just said, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what you're feeling.
Beautiful.
And she never, ever fed me my solutions or my answer, because that's me reaching into, look at that. Amazing how that works. But the beautiful thing was that she created that safe space for me to land. And boy, did I land. And I landed many times during the day. And sometimes the landing felt like a crash landing. But ultimately, what she provided for me, what I needed, was just someone to let me purge it out. Someone to let me feel safe enough as that adult male to get in touch for the first time in my adult life with my inner pain and my inner truths and my inner wounds, so I could begin to heal that part of myself that I had ignored through many different behaviors that led to addictions. And, the interesting thing about my story is that, and, Mary's she's in the studio, but in the background, but I'll share this, is that she had said to me, she didn't even know how it was possible that she showed up that way, because that was not how she had showed up prior to knowing me. That was something new that she had never experienced. She was always that one to give the solutions and rescue and be that landing pad. But this time around, she showed up right on time. Josh, what do you make of that from your experience of being in relationships and being on a giving and receiving end of active listening versus speaking? Do you have any takeaways from that? And then we'll move on.
Yeah. I was showing up as the typical guy in all of my previous relationships with women, in the sense that when they would come home and vent and want to just dump and I showed up as the fixer. And I felt that that was my role. And so while they were talking, I am now pulled out of listening and I'm going into problem solving mode. How can I solve this? How can we make it better? Whatever. I have completely stopped listening at this point. And when I would offer solutions, offer things to them, it was often met with frustration or anger, and I couldn't figure out why. I'm trying to solve the problem that you're sharing with me. And it took me so many years and so many frustrated relationships for me to realize, as guys, we often are taught to be the fixers, to create that safe space, to be the rock. And you women don't need that.
No, we don't.
You just
We don't need that.
All right, I'm going to intervene here for 1 second, brother. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
All right. So if a woman needs protection from someone trespassing into the house, who do you think's role is it to make, some sort of protection?
Hell yeah, man. Grab the baseball bat under the bed. Run out of the bedroom. Hell yeah. Kill that spider.
So what I'm saying here is we're seeing a beautiful dance of the masculine and the feminine energy. So there are still roles, I feel, for the masculine energy to uphold within that household, within that relationship. And yes, we don't have to fix everything, at all as men, but we do have to provide that safe space.
And
Beautiful.
And what's included in that safe space is listening.
Yes. I want to point something out because
that took me forever to learn. But tell us.
I'm going to point something out because a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't realize this. So I'm going to challenge everybody. I'm going to invite you to open your hearts and listen with your hearts right now. Here's where it really goes straight to the shitter. With Josh's example, when you are immediately the fixer, here's why you're met with frustration. Without realizing it, you are treating the person in front of you, you're treating that woman like she's powerless. And that's why it goes awry. That's why it starts to go bad. If I come home or I had a day where I'm frustrated, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what happened today? Blah, blah, blah. You know why I'm sharing that with you? I'm sharing it with you to connect heart to heart, because that's just is what happened in my day today. The same as, oh my gosh, 4,000 butterflies flew through the driveway when I went outside today. That's sharing. Just because it's something we label as negative doesn't mean it needs to be fixed. And as soon as somebody starts to fix you, you're being treated like you're weak and powerless, like you need fixing. The only people that need fixing are people who can't fix themselves. Women can fix themselves. You see that? So because of that, there's the frustration. A woman is sharing with you because she loves you enough to connect with you and share her life with you by sharing with you what happened today. So to feel that connection, this is that balance and that reciprocation, is the act of listening. And what Eva said, it's that protection. Protection is the safety that I can be vulnerable enough to open my heart, share, and connect to your heart. And what you're going to provide back is active listening, which is an aspect of love, and the safety and the stability of that safety energy, which is nothing but divine masculine energy. Now we're in balance. Now we're in balance.
Well, let me ask you this though. Yeah, I'm a little confused here, so I'm gonna kind of blow this wide open. Then I heard the question really loud and clear, Ev, and Rachel came back and shared a different perspective. But where I get confused is when is it appropriate then for the masculine divine to step in, and when he feels, let's say, that his partner, his friend, female, is in danger of some sort, when is it appropriate then for him to step in?
Yeah, good question. Here's my little rule. Remember this: feminine power, masculine strength. I want you to really think about this for a minute. Feminine power, masculine strength. Men are physically created to be bigger and stronger. They have the strength. That's the protector. They are bigger than stronger than women. Our bodies are very different. So relatively speaking, female bodies are built to be way more fragile compared to a man's. A man's body is built way stronger, tougher. It can withstand things. But guess what? Emotionally, men are the way more fragile ones. That's where women's power comes in. They have the emotional power that men don't have. Because of that, we balance each other out perfectly. So when it comes to anything emotional, that's woman's power right there. She's the leader there. She doesn't need fixing. When it comes to anything else, if it's physical, if you're in danger, hey, you got this. I want you to protect me because I know you're a hell of a lot stronger than I am, no matter how strong I am. You see it? That's how we balance each other out in a divine way, men versus women. And if you're still unsure, men, guess what? All you have to do is ask. Do you need my help? Do you need me to do anything right now that I'm not doing? Just ask. And she will tell you exactly what she would love from you to make her feel loved and protected and supported.
I love that. I love that. Katrina May, coming in from Canada, our neighbor just north of us in the US of A, she says, I wonder if Jane ever told Tarzan, don't worry, honey.
Woo! I love it, Katrina.
Ev, what do you make of that?
I love it.
I love what you're saying there, sister. And, like from that masculine energy side then, when would you say there is that balance? Because as we know, and I've been in relationships, man, where that beloved, the emotions actually clouded their judgment. So when is the time that that feminine energy or that feminine within that relationship knows that she may be over emotional with particular decisions made within the relationship?
That's a beautiful question. So first we have to make sure we define divine feminine versus wounded feminine.
Ooh, whoa.
Divine feminine, there is nothing but clarity. That's divine wisdom. There is only clarity. And you follow your intuition, not necessarily any emotion. You see it? But wounded feminine and wounded masculine can do the same, but more common in wounded feminine. Wounded feminine is, oh my God, I feel this way. What do I do? Now I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this decision. You never make decisions based on pain. So we're in our wounding when we're making any decisions based on our pain, our fears. So that means that's a sign for us. There is healing that needs to be done right here, right now. And as I process and heal what is coming up for me, my pain, my wounds, there's nothing wrong with them. But we don't make decisions from them. When we are in our wounding or in our pain, we wait, we process, we heal, and we make sure we make decisions based on clarity. We go into the presence, right? That's the feminine energy. And then we take action out of the presence. That's the masculine taking action out of presence, which is always in perfect balance.
Love that, sister. And so when does the logic mind come into play, sister?
You're not going to like this answer.
Ev, can you repeat the question one more time so we can let it catch a breath?
I'm just creating the safe space for our divine feminine in the house tonight. I love this dance between the masculine and the feminine brain. So I just wanted to know, when does the logic mind, as opposed to that emotional mind, come into play?
Yeah. So if you follow the laws of the universe and divinity, you will always go into presence first. Heal, clear, heal, clear. And from there, intuition will tell you 99% of the time what you do. Your mind doesn't even need to get involved. But it doesn't mean that when we are in presence and we are in that space, that spaciousness and divinity, that it isn't practical. A lot of times the solution and the answer is a really practical answer. It's a simple, practical, I just got to do this. But if it's the logical mind is usually run by mental programs and is out of balance. So if you're thinking first, you're almost always you're not coming from the divine space. You drop in your heart, you open and expand your heart, you drop into presence, you clear and heal, and then you allow your heart, your soul to speak through your heart and tell you, guide you what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I like to call that. So I had to explain that to my new girlfriend, how I take a pause when making a decision or a choice. And what I'm doing is I like to call it, I try it on. And it's almost like you're putting on a coat and you're like, all right, how does this feel? Oh, it's a little tight in the back. I don't know. Can I button? Oh, no, that's not going to work. You discard it. But I drop into that feeling space because I spent so much of my life right here, and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And so I really enjoy trying things on now. I'll wear, like, you know, we're talking about maybe doing this or doing that, and I'll wear them both. And I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. Let's do that. But I had to express to her, this is that moment where you don't hear me saying anything.
Yes.
And I haven't answered your question just yet.
Yes.
I'm taking that pause for me to wear both, try it on, feel it.
Beautiful.
And then decide.
All right. So I'm just going to say this, Josh. What you just shared is pure liquid gold. I'm speaking from my own life experiences, is that you just nailed it. You just nailed it. That is one of the biggest challenges, especially as men, that we have, is that we weren't taught how to pause. We weren't taught how to just literally just pause, breathe, maybe close our eyes, maybe even just say, excuse me for one moment, I'm just going to go to the bathroom, go to the bedroom, close the door, create center for yourself, create balance within. And so that you don't say something you're going to regret. You don't say something that's going to be hurtful for you or to that other individual. That is pure liquid gold. I didn't know, I wasn't taught that. Most men weren't,
Right.
Nor were women in homes. But as a man, I could tell you that my life didn't change. My life didn't shift. My life didn't pivot until I learned how to hit the pause button. And it changes. It can change every relationship that you invest in. I'm not just talking about intimate relationships. I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about relationships with family members.
Business relationships.
Right.
Totally.
Right. We're so quick to feel like we always got to be on the fly. We always got to be either fight, flight, or freeze. We're always ready for that instead of just learning how to trust yourself through pause. And, you know, something that didn't come up yet, but it's going to happen right now is I want to just kind of shift gears real quick. What does it mean to show up as a conscious observer that can help us in the balancing act and, or, you know, being out of balance in our life and in our relationships? What is it, the essence of, what does a conscious observer mean? What can it mean for us today as men and women? Rachel?
I have one
Go ahead,
final
Josh.
quick thought
Yeah.
on that last thing. I have one more thing to close that out with, was that I always believed that inaction equaled weakness.
Oh, good one.
And pausing for yourself is not weakness.
It's power.
There's your strength. There's your power.
It's power.
But yes, now I want to hear.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So what? Tell me, Josh. The last time you paused, what did it? Are you aware of how you physically felt when you had that conscious awareness around the pause? What did it bring for you? What did it do for you physically? Are you aware of how your body responded to that?
It's time for me. I'm honoring my emotions. I'm actually listening to them. I'm stopping life and all the buzz around me to say, how do I feel about this? What do I want to do? What is it that I truly, truly want? How do I feel trying on each one? Tapping into that feeling space. I mean, again, it's what we've talked about in so many episodes, coming out of here and getting into here. and being present with that and honoring what comes up and listening to what comes up. And it's hard at first. And I get it for people who do try this. That voice was so quiet in me at first, I could barely hear it. But as you start to listen, as you start to check in with yourself, this is that balance that we're talking about. It starts to get louder and clearer. And you start to just know it doesn't take, 10 minutes to go remove yourself. It takes only a few seconds to try on both, either option or wear something for a second and go, no, that's not right at all. Next. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And I want to add that, if I may, that is your source of power. When you're truly connected to, it's not being connected to your emotions, it's being connected to your heart center, your heart chakra. That's the source connection to your soul. That means you have the ability to not bypass, that's not the right word, to detach. That's that conscious observer. You can detach from your programs, your wounds that may have been triggered if they were. You can also detach from the other person in front of you, from their wounds or their triggers or their programs, if that's what's going on. And the next thing, it gives you the power to, this is self-love. What Josh was saying, how can I show up for myself? How does this feel for me? What does my divine intuition say? But also then, if I'm in presence, how am I able to show up for this other person? And then we don't make those mistakes that our minds usually trick us into making, like, oh, yeah, I'll do it. I'll be there. Oh, I can do that. And then you're overextending. There's the overgiver getting out of balance again. Versus, oh, really, when I drop in and I'm present and I'm in my heart first, I actually can't show up for you in that way. I don't have the bandwidth. I can't do it. And I love you, but that doesn't work for me. We're going to have to figure something else out. Now there's an open, honest connection. It's not about telling someone else what they want to hear all the time or doing what they want you to do. It's about being honest and authentic. That is the way of purity. It's one of the ways of oneness. And that's how we shift into the way of purity.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we're going to invite you, from your perspective, what does it mean to become your own conscious observer in your life? Can you describe that for our viewers?
For me, I mean, it is that beautiful dance we're talking about here from Heart Space. There's no doubt about it that is the gateway, and it's shown in all ancient traditions. And for many of us that have done the work, just come from a knowing as a place from believing. But for me, there is a balance between this subconscious, this conscious, and this unconscious mind. We do put a lot of stuff into the heart space, and I think if we get to the place where we are at that front of that neocortex, Neo, the one in the matrix, where we can be that conscious observer, we can actually come outside of ourselves and see the way that we act, see the way we behave. Remember how Neo, he couldn't do anything in the matrix until he came outside of himself and watched himself. So it's really pulling ourselves away from some of these things that we may get ourselves into that may cause us challenges, that may cause us suffering. And then asking ourselves the questions through introspective work, through self-awareness, and from some of these inner deep journeys that we go on. Does this serve me? Does this serve my goals, my intentions, my purpose down here on the physical plane? If not, how can I change my actions and my behavior to create a more life in peace, balance, joy, and harmony?
Beautiful, Ab. Yeah. Beautiful. And the biggest lie we're all living is that we are our thoughts. We are our brain. And the second biggest lie is that someone else can make you feel a certain way. Both are choices.
Beautiful.
Both.
So Josh, on the back end of that someone can make you feel a certain way, how do you break the cycle? How have you break the cycle? Because we easily, like I got activated recently in the last month by a friend, something that was said. And I did what you just suggested before. I first reacted and I wrote exactly what I felt: anger, hurt. Like I was, it doesn't matter. I don't need to go into the details other than what I did was after I wrote it out, I then shared it with a friend that I trust. And then I did the next step, which is I didn't send it. I paused. I paused for, I think, 24 hours. And then when I awoke the next day, I became my own conscious observer of the situation. I reread the text and I went deep enough to hear the voice behind the words spoken to me. And I knew enough about the backstory to know that that individual, how I received it, truly was not what the intention of the message was. The intention of the message was that that individual was just fearful for losing a friend, fearful that I wasn't going to make it. And it wasn't about me. It was about that other person. And in that moment, knowing the backstory, knowing some of the traumas and tragedies that individual has encountered, I went right to empathy. I deleted everything I wrote. And I just said, thank you for sharing your perspective.
Powerful.
And that for me was such an incredible growth moment. Because in that moment, I felt like I was being kicked when I was on the ground. I took it personally. And then when I was able to ascend to a higher level of consciousness, as Dr. Reverend Cole says, it's time for me to do that, show up and grow up for myself and pause and really understand that that individual didn't know how to express his true essence of what he was feeling. And truly what I interpreted was that he was just concerned about me. It came through as anger because that's where he's at in the journey. But I don't have to reciprocate and come back. Okay, let's bring it on, brother. I'll always regret that. So there's where we talk about how to become the conscious observer in that situation is don't go into the weeds. You know, the true essence of a leader, and even in the armed forces, is they're not on the ground. They're always above. They got to have that helicopter view. That is what a conscious observer is that we can become. And the quicker we embrace that concept for living the rest of our life in this lifetime, the healthier we will find relationships to be.
Totally.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that, Josh?
You pulled the Neo. As Ed said, you unplugged from the matrix. You saw the big picture. We can, thoughts are only thoughts, but our thoughts generate our emotions. So when you created that story that you were being attacked, I know this is so great. This doesn't get old. This doesn't get old. When you created the story that you were being attacked, that caused your emotion of pain and anger, and you wanted to fight back.
Yeah.
But when you realized and pulled yourself out of it and read his words again through a new lens, through truth, you saw he was expressing love. And then you saw the gift.
Yeah. Now that's simple, not easy. And I know Josh loves when I say those words. It's simple, not easy, because in that moment, my health was compromised. I wasn't in balance. I wasn't doing my usual rituals and commitment to self-care. I was in pain. I was hurting. I was down. But yet I had done enough work to where I was like, I'm not okay. If I send this, what part of me is going to feel better? And in that moment, I realized that all I was going to be doing was schooling that individual who in my heart, I know is just nothing but love. I knew how much he loved me. And I was able to just take off, unlace the boxing gloves and say, not here, not now, not today. I'm going to receive his love in the indirect way that he could bring it to me. Rise above. And it's difficult in that moment because there was that younger self, that 15-year-old. Oh, damn it. I wanted him to know how I really felt. I wanted him to know.
That right there. I want to comment on that because I think I want to connect a couple dots just in case this is a little bit newer for some of the listeners. the trigger for Jay in the work, in the coaching work that I do and my corporation does, it'll show you that trigger. What did it activate? What mental programs got activated in Jay? What emotional programs? And you connect the dots down. How old am I right now? How old do I feel? How old am I behaving? And that lets you know there's an inner child wound. So you got triggered because there's an inner child wound. There's an unhealed wound that needs your attention right now. So instead of taking action in any way, shape, or form, that's the inner work that you do first, because that means there's healing that I get to do on myself right now. That this person, even if they really are wrong or terrible and they're being a total asshole, let's just pretend they're a total asshole, they're not coming from love. Even if that's the case, because we all know that happens. We all know that happens. Even if that's the case, when I am really triggered by that, it's my work. That's a mirror for me to go in and do the deeper inner work, because now you just gave me a chance to heal myself. And if I heal, I elevate. And when I elevate, I become more powerful. And as a more powerful being, I'm a more loving being. Use those moments to heal yourself. That's how you stay in balance.
Beautiful. Love that. Love that. As we approach the hour, we have a choice here. We could call it, we could surrender to the hour of power, or we can kind of extend it just a little bit and go a little longer than the hour. What do you guys think?
Pretty special moment.
We got anywhere else? We got anywhere else to be right now?
Moment.
I'll think it better. Well, actually, I do know it would get better. Is I could reach off this side and touch Dennis. Get better.
Exactly.
No.
Well,
I want my hand. I wish this hand could just.
Well, here's what Mo says. Let's extend it. So where I want to go is, as we talk about the balancing act in self and relationships in life, I want to take us on a little journey here. Really invite Rachel here to kind of open us up on what is the difference between emotional versus the mind and mental, as it relates to balance from within. Tell us some more. Where are we going at right now with that?
Sure. I think I touched on it a little bit just a moment ago, but when we are the observer, the conscious observer, I'm going to say that first. It allows us to see what mental programs are running. And what does that mean? It means, what are my thoughts? What is my mind saying about this person, this situation? That right there is the first most powerful step to take towards your own inner healing. Why? Because you'll notice repeated mental programs running. That's unfair. This is not okay. I'm not being treated well. I always get the short end of the stick. You notice that and write them down, that I got triggered. What are my mental programs? Okay. And you'll notice a pattern that they are very similar, or certain triggers, certain life situations or people trigger a group of programs every time. So you notice those programs, and then you say, okay, what are my emotional programs? That's go in and focus on, how am I really feeling about this right now? You're not coping, you're not avoiding, you're not suppressing. You're also not projecting and vomiting those emotions on anybody. Yeah. You're observing them, write them down. Well, anger and resentment, and go deeper though. You'll realize there's something else there. What's underneath the anger? It might be fear. You might feel powerless. And if that powerlessness is there and you feel weak, it's bringing up, what are your behavioral programs? You can go down the list and connect the dots. And then you ask, how old am I? Your mental programs, your emotional programs they will lead you to your inner wounds that need to be seen, heard, validated, and loved by you, not by anybody else, by you. And when you do that over and over again, it actually heals and alchemizes those programs, which means those mental programs will fade away. They won't get triggered anymore. Now you're stepping into balance. The emotional programs, the more you love them when they come up and go into your pain, they start to dissolve away and alchemize and heal, which means you're becoming a balanced, divine person that you'll hardly ever get triggered anymore. But even if you do, you'll shift right into presence, right into your heart. And any emotions or mind that wants to spew its nonsense, you'll observe it. And in seconds, they can then fade away with this practice. That's how you really truly become a balanced person.
Nice. Love it.
What do you make of that, Av?
It's all there. There's the show. There's the show. I love listening to the sister. And, you know, like I can only dovetail on the back of that. Yeah. Obviously, once you start to realize some of those programs, and for the coaching that I do for the brothers that I serve on their journey, a lot of them are stuck in their head. Let's face it. You know, they keep replaying and reminding me of those programs without even their awareness that they keep telling the same story.
Yeah.
So I will always get them into the present moment. I will start them off with the stillness that we're talking about and come back to the breath. When we can then start coming back to that present moment, not being in the past, worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, not being in the in the future, not being in the past, worrying about what happened yesterday, but being here in the present, then we can start feeling some of those emotions that are attached to some of those events, circumstances, or situations. Because to me, it is really the emotion. Once you're able to release, then we can start recreating the program, the story, through what we see. And that's to me where it comes pretty deep, because I start to use visualization techniques. I start to get these brothers into the imagination, and then I start to use and transmute emotions that are going to amplify the new story, not the one in the past.
Yep. And if you keep the one guarantee in life is if you keep thinking the same way, your life is going to produce the exact same results that you've experienced up until now. You have to change something. And by becoming the conscious observer, you get to change that moment. What emotions are triggered in that moment? You get to redirect the story that you're talking about, Ev, so it doesn't play again. We're catching it in the moment and we're saying, nope, not anymore. I'm going that way. And that's the power we have. And yeah, you guys said it.
So as far as the difference between showing up emotionally versus a balance within, coming from more of emotional regulation, that's a hard one, especially if you've, as an adult, have not learned how to manage your emotions. Who wants to jump on that one? How can we learn maybe is there a shortcut? Can we take a shortcut? Rachel, what do you think?
Yeah, heart center. Heart center, heart center, heart center. Energetically, in your entire physical body, in your energetic fields that surround your physical body, whether you're aware of them or not, doesn't matter. Your entire beingness, the balance of that happens in your heart center. It's why when people learn to drop in, quote unquote, and connect to their heart centers, their entire chemistry starts to change. All those happy, calming hormones get released in the brain, and everything starts to shift and change. That balances mental programs, emotional programs. It balances and heals unhealed wounds. It balances your physical body, your energy centers, like everything in your existence, heart center. So instead of staying trapped up here, which keeps us totally out of balance, we drop in, and the heart center is always the first place to go and the last place to end up. You stay in the heart because everything else balances from that core central point. That is your place of divinity. That is your place of divine connection to your higher soul, to source, whatever you want to call it. It happens in the heart. And that's where the vibrational frequency of unconditional love, that energy starts to emanate. So it's always heart.
So look, truth. Rachel, I totally agree with you. But here's where it gets complicated. If you were anything like I was, I didn't have an address. My GPS could never take me to my heart-centered space. So, as a man, how do we access our heart when we never have been taught how to get there? Oh, is there a shortcut to get there? How do we tap into that part of ourselves that we didn't even know existed?
Yes, I can tell you, you have to get, and I mean this so sincerely, you have to get the experts and the professionals to help you step by step. And I'm not trying to sell myself right now. I'm not trying to do that at all. But I'm going to say those are the coaching programs that I've spent my entire life creating, literally to take you one bite-sized piece, one step at a time. It takes you step by step. There is a process, and men will love to hear this because it is a left brain, practical, simple process to follow. But when you really follow that work, or people who know how to do this kind of work, it literally takes you through this process of every day, every week, you go deeper and deeper and deeper to connect there until you really learn how and master it. The rest is easy peasy after that. So it is a process. There's not a, here's your 3 best hacks. It really does take devotion. It takes willingness to learn, and it is a process. I want to be clear about that. But if you're willing to do that, there absolutely are programs that can show you step by step how to do it. I promise you, you can be shown step by step how to do it.
Let me ask you this, Av. In Australia, like, do you got a shortcut to get us to the soul?
Called nature, brother. That's my shortcut, man. That's my shortcut. And we're talking about balance tonight. If you want to see balance, my brothers and sisters, while you guys have got summer over there on the other side of the pond, try and find your way in nature somewhere. Because although the chaos and all of this, chaotic stuff's happening out there, there's always balance. And I really believe that is the shortcut of coming back home.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Love it. So what I'd like to do at this moment is I'd like to invite each one of you just to share some closing thoughts around either tonight's topic or what tonight's show has brought forward for you. Josh, Rich, I'm going to invite you to lead us off with your closing thoughts.
Oh, shit. Pressure's on. God, we covered so much. So much. Balance. Being bipolar for me, balance was the biggest and hardest lesson for me to learn in my life. I was real good at focusing all of my thought and doer energy on one thing and getting stuck there. And maybe some of that is that male energy too. But for me, it was really hard to pull out of that. It was really hard to even stop and eat and fuel myself and listen to what I needed rather than listen to what I thought I needed to be doing. So I still work on balance, and it's still not easy. It's not easy for me. It's easier for me to get stuck in the passion of what I'm doing and the fire of what I'm doing and creating and building. So I'm still working on it. We're all students until the day I end up 6 feet under. But the joy, the peace that has come into my life when I stepped out of here and into here and started listening, and that soft voice gets louder, it gets clearer. The answers come faster. And it's like anything. We can't pick up a guitar for the first time and jam out a great tune. We have to learn to play. And the same goes with our thoughts, observing them, choosing new ones, listening to our heart, dropping in, wearing things, trying things on, listening to that little voice. These are all practices. They're not hard. They just take a little awareness and observation and some practice. And when you start doing that, it does get clearer, louder, better. The answers come, and it's a much more peaceful way to go through life. And then without all of that noise, what magically fills that space, which used to consume a lot of your thoughts, is joy, laughter, play. That childlike self gets to come out. And so that's what balance means to me. And this has been one of my major lessons in this life. For sure.
Beautiful.
Can I give this man a hug?
Love you too, Jay.
Feel that love there, Rachel.
I know.
You know what? It doesn't get any better than this right here, right now. Whew. Ev, you're up, man. Close us out with some thoughts or words of wisdom from tonight's episode 115.
Yeah, brother. Hey, before I do, I just want to thank also Rachel's community from MSU. If you guys are watching out there tonight, I've been very fortunate and honored to work with Rachel and the team. And so if Chris, Ellie, and Chad are all out there watching, hey there, brothers and sister. Thanks for having me on board, and it's been a real pleasure. And we should also give you a plug for your book, which launches on Monday, On That Lion's Gate, Rachel.
Yes.
So please just quickly share with us what's happening for your book.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that so much. So on Monday, yes, my book is being released on Monday on 8/8 on Lionsgate. Mason's Way, the 20 Universal Ways of Oneness taught by the spirit of an enlightened dog. So that will be released on Monday.
How do we find it?
I can give you links if you want. I can share links.
Okay.
It'll be on Amazon. That's the easy way to find it.
Okay.
I'm buying it.
There you go.
Special digital download off the website on Monday. What do you reckon?
99 cents only on Monday.
There you go. There you
Monday
go.
only.
There you
Ev,
go.
any other closing thoughts from?
Yeah, look, we've been talking about balance tonight. You know, a lot of the stuff that I've obviously shared when I was out of balance, things that came up within my life was stress, a lot of anxiety. You know, some of all these other programs that seem to be running rampant on the planet at the moment, these are sure symptoms that you're imbalanced with certain areas within your life. So for me, I always work with 5D body. I work on the physical plane, I work on the etheric plane, on the astral plane, on your soul or spiritual plane, and your divine plane. Those last two, we really want to connect back to. But when one or the other, like I said at the start in my intro, is overcompensated, we try and pull from other dimensions within our daily lives. So whether that's through your relationships, whether that's through your occupational, your job, your career, whether it's through the environments you're in, we start to pull from these other places, and then there's certain details that we start to feel burnt out. We start to, like I said, feel stressed or tired. These are sure telltales that you are out of balance. For me, it's really asking yourself the questions. And I said this on the show about energy a couple of weeks ago. It's unlimited energy on this planet right now, my brothers and sisters. And if you're feeling the energy off this Lionsgate portal, wow, man, there's so much energy within it. But what we are limited to, my brothers and sisters, is time. Your time here on this planet is a short life. So think about what is non-essential in your life. Are there relationships? You have to let go. Cut the cord, brothers and sisters. This is about coming back home to yourself. Avoid wasting time on some of those things that you don't have to. Set your priorities. Make sure your goals, your purpose, all of those things start to align to the values which will drive your priorities within your life, which will, like I said, align to that purpose. So some of those things for me, my brother, are really telltale signs that whack you out of balance. But there's some of the questions you can ask yourself to get you back online.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Love it. Rachel Fiori, before I give you a moment here, I do want to thank you for making the drive up to LA County, far south, probably as far south, close to the Mexican border. Welcome to the LA studio, Josh Rich's place here. It's been such an honor to spend tonight with you. And you have been such a gift to Real Men Real Talk Live. This is your third time joining us in the studio. And each time it just feels like, can it get any better? And not that there's I don't ever come in with an expectation. I always come in with one intention, and that intention is to just to touch one person's life, to bring clarity, to bring maybe an epiphany, to bring some healing to themselves and their relationships, to bring a moment of clarity that changes the trajectory of their life, the trajectory of their health and their wellness, mind, body, and soul. And so with that, Rachel, thank you for making a trip up here to invest the time to be with us live in Los Angeles, California. Take it away. This is your moment.
Thank you. This is such a special moment to be here with these gentlemen. I think just to remember, everybody listening, that even if you are experiencing moments or maybe massive test of initiation where things seem really out of balance for you, you have the power within yourself. Always. It is there 100% of the time. You have the power within yourself to shift, to change, to heal, to transform. You might not know how, and that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. That just puts you more out of balance. Seek out the experts and the professionals to help you, to help show you the way. But you do have it in there. The best experts, your gurus, quote unquote, your best teachers are the ones who guide you back to yourself, deep inside of yourself, inside, within you. That is your home. That's home. That's your divinity. And everyone has it. Everyone has the power within. I promise you it's there. If you need help to access it, just reach out and find the expert who can help you. But it's here. It's not that you don't have it. You always have the power.
Beautiful.
Beautiful night.
And so as I take a moment to reflect on tonight's episode, is all about balance. It has been about balance. And I want to reflect back in how it was and how it is for me, is I couldn't find my way home through exercising at the gym. I couldn't find my way home to inner peace by speaking louder to be heard. I couldn't find my way home to balance, even by working more hours or less hours. I couldn't find my way home through one more vacation or one more designer suit or one more amazing, expensive, high-end dinner out at a restaurant. And I had no idea how to get there. But the one thing that changed my life was when I found my way to my soul. Get out of my head so I can tap into my heart, the heart that was wounded, the heart that I had abandoned in my own life. And that way, that was my gateway to return to love. The love I'm talking about is love of self. The soul is the essence of who we are. We can't think our way back home to touch and reach our heart and soul. And the gift that I have received from finding my way home to my soul is the ability to connect with other people, soul to soul. And that, my friends, is what the balance of life is about. Yes. It's about connecting. Okay.
Bring it in, Josh.
And with that, thank you for joining us this evening on Real Men, Real Talk Live. We'll catch you next week. Say that, Rachel. Why don't you guys close this out all together? Thank you for joining us on Real Men,
Real Talk
Live.
beautiful.
We're still alive.